Welcome to Access Spotlight. I'm Travis Youssef. I have the pleasure today of sitting down with Peter Christofides. He's a Republican resident running to be the next U.S. representative of New York's 3rd Congressional District. Welcome, Peter. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to have you, man. So, you're a native Long Islander, born in Huntington. You grew up in East Northport, now currently residing in Farmingdale. Talk to me about, how your family came about to be in Nassau County.
Absolutely. So my grandparents on my maternal side, they're from New York City. My grandmother's from Brooklyn, grandfather's from Manhattan. And when they got married, they moved out to Farmingdale. And then on my dad's side, he's actually an immigrant to this country. He came from Cyprus in the early 70s when he was 8 years old. Yeah. And they resided in Hicksville. And ironically enough, too, my grandfather opened the flower shop in Hicksville on New Bridge Road. And that's kind of like where my parents met. And they got together and they moved out east when I was young. And then I just decided to come back to Nassau. I like the feeling of Nassau better. They always say like Suffolk is more like the country, and then you have the city. Nassau is like a happy medium.
Sure.
So I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, great. Great, Peter. No, that's awesome. So talk to me a little bit about what you're currently, I know that you're in school right now, correct? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yep. So I go to Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. Okay. I got my undergrad there from 2016 to 2020. And then I actually planned on moving to Washington, D.C. I was going to go work for Lee Zeldin because I had actually interned for his home office in Patchogue back in the summer of 2019.
Oh, great.
And so I had a job lined up, then COVID kicked in. So I figured, let me go back to school for a little while. Let me get my master's degree. So I'm finishing that up in December. And so I'm living in Virginia right now, but my permanent residency is in Farmingdale. And I'll be back up in come January.
No, awesome. Awesome, Peter. Now, what are you studying there?
Getting a master's degree in government. They call it politics and policy.
Okay, great.
So it's kind of a nice segue into this.
Yeah, for sure. So now, has anyone in your family gotten into politics previously? Or are you the first?
I'm the first. Okay. We're a family of politics. Like, we love talking about it around a kitchen table, Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever. But I'm the first to go into it. My grandfather, he's part of like the Lions Club back in the day and all that, but I'm the first to actually run for an office there.
Great. Now, what made you decide to run for office?
So I knew ever since I was young, I was blessed with always knowing what I wanted to do, and that is studying U.S. history, the Revolutionary War period, and government, learning more about it, understanding it. In fact, actually, my grandparents, they got me this pocket constitution when I was younger, and I've been reading it ever since, got all the little creases and edges on it. And I knew eventually, like, I wanted to run. I didn't think I'd do it this soon. I figured, maybe go to law school like everyone else, right? And I decided against that. I tried going to law school. It just wasn't for me. And I was reading the newspaper one day, a few years ago, and there was a news article about a lady up in New Hampshire. She was my age, and she was running for Congress. She ultimately lost, but the fact that she was going after it, and she was fighting for, liberty and the Constitution and, pro-America policies, it just made me excited, made me realize, well, if she can do it, why can't I? Sure. Why can't I just go in and throw my hat in the ring? And I know I'm young and I'm new at this, but I think when people hear my ideas, hear what I have to say, and just have a conversation with me, I think that'll go a long way. Yeah,
no, absolutely, Peter. Now you mentioned working with Lee Zeldin. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience and your time with him?
Absolutely. So summer 2019, I needed like an internship for a qualification for a class in school. And, I was looking at Washington. I just couldn't find, Washington's very competitive, couldn't find anything. And so I decided, well, why don't I go work at the Home Office? It's a different environment. You're not really focused a lot on policy. It's more, how can we help the constituents? So I said, let me apply. My buddy was applying. He told me to do the same thing. And it was going to be out in Patchogue. I think Garbarino has the office now because of the redistricting, but that's where it was originally. And I went in, dressed up, and I met his district director, Mark Woolley, who I think actually works for Santos now, if I'm not mistaken. Great guy, hired me right on the spot to intern. And it was a good time. I was the only intern that was there, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Didn't get paid, used my own gas money, and drove out from Farmingdale, just took Sunrise Highway all the way down. But it was a good experience. I got to meet members of the community. I got to help people out. They had to do this thing real quick just so people get an idea of what it's like. You have to fill out a form called a Privacy Act Release Form, or a PAR. So that way we can help, as an office representing the congressman, we can help you out in any capacity. So my job was help filling out those forms with the constituents, talking with them, answering phone calls. And then we did 2 events that summer, both in Riverhead. One of the events was Alive on 25, I remember. It's like they closed down the main street on Riverhead, and they have like a party with all these vendors and stuff, and there's music. And so the congressman was at that one, so that was really cool. Like I said, just interacting with the public. You get phone calls that are great. Lovely. You get phone calls that are like, they say all these nasty things. It is what it is. Actually, I got a funny story about that real quick. I answered the phone one time, and this guy was complaining, saying, why is, these children locked up at the border? What's going on with that? Why is Lee doing that? Is he like a Nazi or something? And he said that word, and that really bothered me, because Lee he's a Jewish man. And that just really rubbed me the wrong way. So I started saying, hey, what's the matter with you? Why would you say that? How dare you? He's from a Jewish family. Do you not know the Jewish culture and history and all that? And I remember one of Lee's aides comes up, and he hangs up the phone as I'm yelling at this guy. And he looks at me, he goes, Peter, I appreciate that you're supporting a congressman, but you can't talk to constituents like that. You got to be really level-headed. And that taught me a lot, being level-headed. And all my odd jobs have taught me a lot. Working in a restaurant, it's taught me that as well.
Well, and it's you have passion, right? And especially when you believe in something, it's important to feel that you're heard.
Absolutely.
And especially when things that you hear are just completely not true, you're just like, well, wait a minute, hold on. You need to address it. And it seems like you're not afraid to do that, Peter.
Absolutely.
Which I think is great. Talk to me a little bit about, odd jobs. I know especially during like the pandemic, you had gone down to South Carolina, right, and helped out your family. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so from 18 years old till now, I've had 4 different jobs. My first one was working with my dad in the kitchen, just food prepping, making sure the cooks had everything they need. That way if they call for something, it's already ready. Boom, boom, get your food out quick. Then the next, the next job I had, I worked at a flower shop in East Northport, Beckman's Florist. I was their delivery driver. That was fun. I helped out around there, bring funeral pieces, centerpieces. My favorite was always going into a beauty salon, and bringing the flowers. All the girls, is that for me? It makes you laugh, made you smile. If I had a nickel for every time I heard that too, I'd be a millionaire.
Yeah.
But then after that, during the pandemic, I had to go down to South Carolina. I have family there in a small town called Gaffney. It's right in between Charlotte, Spartanburg, very small town, rural. In the town, there's a factory there. It's Hamrick Mills, Musgrove plant. It's a cotton factory, and what we do is we take the raw, or a textile mill, so we took the raw cotton, we turned it into cloth. Now during the pandemic, our number one client was a company out in Chicago, and they were taking our cloth and they were making masks and scrubs and everything for the pandemic. So in a way, the job was a pain in the neck, but I was serving my country. My shift was from midnight to 8 a.m. I was working in a room, the weave room. I had to wear these headphones in the whole time, otherwise you go deaf because the machines are so loud,
Sure.
But it just, and that really taught me too the importance of American industry, why we need those jobs here, very important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially to keep things here, and especially during that time. That says a lot, for you to be able to go down there, again, putting in your hard work, making sure that you're helping others out. Talking a little bit more about community and whatnot, it's gone through a lot of changes over the years. There's a lot of tension between different groups, empty stores, things are expensive. Talk to me a little bit about some achievements that you hope to, that you basically hope to achieve.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of my big things, as one of my 4 policy platforms, is taxes.
Okay.
Taxes is a huge thing. And a lot of people don't realize, too, that there's actually 2 different types of taxes. The Constitution talks about it. You have your direct taxes and your indirect taxes. Now, every April 15th when you pay your taxes, that's the direct tax. They're taxing your income. It's coming directly out of your income. Indirect tax is you're paying a tax on a good or a service or a product. So, example, you go to a gas station, go pump up your tank. You're not going to, you go to a cash register, hand them cash, the tax is included. They're not going to say, oh, do you want to pay the tax on top of it? It's coercive that you have to include that. So for me, I think, first of all, I think direct taxes are unconstitutional. Even though it's in the Constitution, I think it's like immoral. The Founding Fathers never wanted that. And we've seen it just be such a burden to Long Islanders, being taxed to high heavens. I mean, people are leaving in numbers. They're looking for greener grass in Florida, Carolinas, even Virginia. I meet a lot of New Yorkers down there when I'm down there at school. And they all say the same thing. We love New York. We wish we could stay there, but we're taxed to death, basically. And, the old adage Ben Franklin once said, the only thing that's ever immortal is, death and taxes, So I think one of my big goals is, and this is, a long shot bid, but I would love to repeal the 16th Amendment in the Constitution, actually. And I'll read it real quick.
Yeah,
and basically, it just says, 13, 14. Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever sources derived without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration. So they can tax your income. Basically, not to go into the theory of it too much, but basically, Congress allowed for a direct tax, but it had to be apportioned accordingly throughout the states, kind of like with the census. So places like New York, Texas, Florida, higher populations would pay higher direct taxes. But that stipulation was taken out with the 16th Amendment. And not to mention, a direct tax is supposed to be laid on you as a person or your property, not your income. Why? Because that's your labor. You work hard for that. That's your dollar. Why you have to give it away, And and as a Christian, I hear the argument too. Oh, Jesus wanted you to help the poor, and yeah, that's fine. Help the poor, give you money, but not through taxes. That's coercion. You want to do it out of the kindness of your heart.
Sure.
So I'm very passionate about taxes. That's a big deal. I mean, that's why it's first on my website. It's really the number one issue that's plaguing a lot of Long Islanders right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. And even getting into a little bit more of that, you talk about education, environment and energy, law enforcement. What are some of the, what would you say were most important besides taxes?
I'd say definitely the education aspect too.
Sure.
I come from a public school, and I can tell you, I'd advocate for school choice for a reason. I'm not anti-teachers. My mother's a teacher. I'm not anti-union. I'm not anti that. What I am anti is when taxpayer dollars are being used to teach our children nonsense, And what is that nonsense? Talking about, gender fluidity stuff, and when they should be learning about math, sciences, and trade. That's a big thing too. That's always the first thing that gets cut. Trade programs, musical programs, sport. I mean, they find a way to keep the sports in there because it's all about revenue. And and at the end of the day, as much as I hate to say it, but it's not about the students. Everyone's in education policy. Everyone's fighting for, teachers' rights and then parents' rights. And parents' rights is a big important deal. But what about the students? They're the ones supposed to be learning. I mean, we used to be number one in the world in education. Now I think we're like 16th, 17th. That's embarrassing. We're the world's superpower. So that's a big deal. If we're going to use taxpayer money, should be the parents should be then involved and say, hey, this is what we want our kids to learn, not this. They should have that choice.
Sure.
And there should be school choice. I don't want to be pro one thing over the other. I don't want to diminish public schools, but at the same time, we shouldn't diminish private charter. That competition is a good thing. It's a good thing in business. It's a good thing in education. It's a good thing in life.
Yeah.
Helps out everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. When it does come to other things, as far as when it does come to the job itself, a lot of times I feel like it can be thankless, so what makes you want to get into it?
Yeah, right now I'm a server in a restaurant in Virginia while I'm paying my bills, and that could be a very thankless job too. People look down upon you. Oh, you're just a waiter. You take my order. How hard can that be? But there's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes that people don't see. And I think as a congressman, it's the same thing. People don't see the long hours at the office. People don't realize, half of these congressmen, they sleep in their office. I had the pleasure of meeting Congressman Bob Good down in Virginia, and he was telling me a little bit about his experiences with it. And he was one of the 8 that ousted McCarthy, and just talking to him about that, how nobody's thanking him for that. But I think, and this is my personal opinion, I think it was good that we got him out, because then we got a great leader like Mike Johnson. I like Mike Johnson. I really never heard of him before but from what I'm hearing, as long as he keeps saying the same things and doing what he's doing, I enjoy it. And so, I think the job can be thankless. A lot of people see it as a power grab. I mean, for good reason. You have these people that they're running the show, and they're doing these immoral or unconstitutional things, or it's just selfish all about them.
Yeah.
And we forget it's a service job.
For sure.
So.
It's really about the people.
Exactly.
And making sure that you're serving the people and not just going in kind of doing things by the status quo, but actually getting things done,
Exactly.
and making a difference in the community. With that being said, being younger and getting into politics and whatnot, is this something that you do foresee being somewhat of a future for you, or where does your path kind of go from here?
Like if I win or if I lose? Or?
Yeah.
So if I win, I can see myself staying in as long as the people would want me to. I'm a big proponent of term limits when it comes to the Senate, and then when it comes to the Supreme Court.
Great.
Not so much the House. And the only reason, and I used to be for the House, but the only reason I argue against it now is because the founding fathers, they made the tenure so short for a reason, so that people could be constantly watching you. People haven't been doing that nowadays, but in our district they have been, with Mr. Santos and all he's done. But I would serve at the pleasure of the people, however long they want me. If they want me for one term, if they want me for many years, if they want me for not at all, it is what it is, and they ultimately decide.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Great. Now, you talked a little bit about term limits. As far as the monies are concerned, we talk a little bit about on the show there being a cap on that. Do you feel that there should be when it comes to that, and how things should be kind of dispersed with money?
With
money.
contributions.
Correct, yeah. Fundraising and whatnot.
Absolutely. And I was looking into that, and I've found that there's a cap on individual contributions, contributions from a group, but people pile millions and millions and millions of dollars into PACs, political action committees. They're basically separate organizations from the candidate that can give into the candidate's, war chest, so to speak. I believe there should be a cap on PACs. For individual contributions, if an individual wants to give his own money freely, I think that's appropriate. I think there shouldn't be a limit on that. But definitely there should be a curb on the PACs, because a lot of people don't realize that's where most of the money actually comes from. Individual contributions, there's a lot, but PACs is a real deal.
Yeah, no, definitely. Talk to us a little bit about, as far as what you would consider to be one of your greatest accomplishments so far.
In my life right now?
Yeah, in your life, yeah.
I definitely would say my education. That's been a big deal for the last 7 years. I already have friends that are married, out and about, living their life, and I'm still in school. And sometimes that could be frustrating, but I know it's for a greater cause, and it's going to propel me into something down the road in the future, whether it's a good career, public service, what have you. I'm very proud of my family, where I come from, both sides of my family, and what they've achieved. And I hope to replicate that. And I think one of my greatest achievements that I'm proud of is my time working for Zeldin. What I did there, what I accomplished there. Like you said, very thankless. Nobody's going to remember it. Everybody's going to forget it. But I'm going to remember it. I'm going to remember how I helped people, and just guiding the community, talking with the community, and yeah, absolutely.
No, awesome, Peter. What would you say drives you?
This right here.
Yeah.
I think too many people, too many politicians, they don't really talk about it. They don't want to fight for it. When the grit gets tough, they don't want to look to the Constitution or really understand what's in it, why the founders wrote it.
Sure.
The purpose of it, like the wording of it too. People take it out of context all the time. I mean, there's things our government does nowadays too that isn't allowed, and things that are unpopular to say. like education programs, welfare programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. It's not popular to say. Now, I'm not naive. I'm not going to be the type of person who's like, oh, day one, I'm ripping it apart.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not naive. But it is strangling us. It's not constitutional. It was put in place during an unprecedented time with an unprecedented president, Franklin Roosevelt, 4 terms, dealing with the Great Depression and World War II. The country kind of gave a little and allowed it to happen. But since then, we've just seen a decline in quality of life and people just abusing the system. I mean, when I was working for Zelda, I saw people that were younger than me trying to get Social Security checks, and
Wow.
Our policy aside, we have to help them to the best of our ability. So I had to help this individual, even though I didn't agree with what he was doing. I'm sure he was using the money for other substances or what have you. But at the end of the day, you just help him out. So I think we need to look to this document. We need to go back to it and just talking about it. I mean, just quickly too. Like when I see people on the news and they say, "Our democracy, it's our democracy." We're not a democracy. We're a republic. We have democratic aspects through electing people in the House, absolutely. But we're a republic, a representative republic. That's what Madison calls it in the Federalist Papers. So,
Yeah, great.
absolutely.
When it comes to, kind of giving back to the community, I guess, what is your kind of like your number one goal for them?
Have the government get out of their way so they can live their lives.
Sure.
If they want to open that business, they should. If they just saving money, living better, having that white picket fence, and letting them do it on their own terms. The government tries to get involved and fix people's social and personal lives, and then it just creates a problem, and then the government has to create another agency to fix that said problem. So I think if the government gets out of people's way, lower their taxes, makes it easier for business to flourish, everybody will have more money in their pocket, spend more, economy will be great, and life would be good.
Yeah.
So as simple as that, yet it's very prophetic. It's just it's very simple to the point, but I mean that's it. You know?
Yeah, and if you really focus on that, and I like to think that if we have that common goal, that common vision, and you understand that, because again, it's not about necessarily who's wrong and who's right, but really what's best for the community. With that being said, there does seem to be an overall sense of kind of frustration, with the government. Either people are just kind of totally fed up, or they're just kind of putting their hands up in the air. They're just like, whatever. They often don't feel that there's a confidence in their politicians. What do you think you can do to change that?
Don't make promises you can't keep, and keep yourself in the community. When I was in college, in my undergrad years, I was running for the senior class president, basically, in 2019. I was the only one that ran on, so we have this policy at Liberty where you have to wear pants during the day, during class time. Either khakis, jeans, no sweatpants, no pajama pants, no shorts, no nothing.
Gotcha.
Now, for years, a lot of people in student government, they were trying to repeal that. They were trying to get rid of that. They want, we want shorts. I want to wear sweatpants in class. I argued against that. I said, it looks unprofessional. Our school is supposed to be different from every other school. Gives us a sense of we're actually accomplishing something. It just makes you feel good to dress professional and go to class. And, in the school government, I have to dress like this to class. So this is normal to me. And I remember I won. And I remember this guy talking to me. He goes, wow, you're the only person that's actually telling me the truth. Even though I don't agree with you, I'm going to vote for you. And I'll never forget that. And that just clicked with me. It's like, look, I'm just going to speak my truth, and people will respect that. Respect the truth. You can tell 100 truths in your life, and you're fine. You tell one lie, you're done. It's very hard to recover from that. And I think that's what was Santos's issue, which is really sad, because if you think about it, his real life that actually went down, his mother being a maid and them living in a basement, that's more heroic and admirable than making up stories about where you went to school, your education, your heritage, whatever. Because that's not you.
Yeah.
Did he break the law by lying about his resume? That's up for debate. Let the courts decide that. it's sad that he had to lie about that. Like I said, his regular story, I think, was better.
Yeah. Honesty's best policy.
That's right.
My mother always said that.
That's right.
You know, and at the end of the day, the truth will always come out at the end. You know, so you're absolutely right. You know, it's really important to be honest, be truthful. And like you said, you know, a lot of the times that person didn't necessarily agree with a lot of what you might have been saying, but the proof was right there. They said, well, I'm still going to vote for you because you were honest, you were truthful, which is really great. Talk to me a little bit about your time, like with school government and whatnot. What exactly did you do? Was that in high school? Was that in college?
That was at Liberty in college.
Okay, great.
My big thing, a lot of people were promising these big, ambitious goals, and that was a few years ago, so it was hard for me to remember what exactly the nitty-gritty.
No, that's right.
But my thing was just working with facilities to get certain things done. Our school was under construction, so making sure there's certain ramps for people that were wheelchair accessible, putting benches at all the bus stops for the parents who can't stand up. Little things like that that make the biggest difference, and that was what I achieved. And all I did was sent a few emails out to the school facilities, and they got working on it really quick. And you know, it was really easy.
Yeah.
And I, you know, like I'll sit at the bus stops and have my headphones in, but I could still hear people talking. You know, they talk, wow, I can't believe they upgraded it over here. They put a heater in the bus stop and all that. That's really nice. And it makes me smile because it's like, you know, I was able to achieve that, but I just kept quiet and didn't say anything. And I don't want to be like prideful like that. Oh, that was me. You know, I didn't want to be that guy. You know.
You got it just from them overhearing them what they were saying.
That's all I needed.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure. And it's just you never know what the little things will do for someone, that the ripple effect, so to speak. You know, whether you drop a pebble or whether you drop a rock, it's going to affect the world in some way. You obviously affected the world in a big way, especially for that community. You know, Peter, which is really
very
great.
little thing, but it went a long way.
And again, it's those little things, you know. It's a smile to someone. It's a hey, how you doing? Especially nowadays when we're so on our phones and we're so down. It's like it's good to be able to look up and, like you said, you had your headphones in, but you could still hear, you know, your surroundings, what's happening, you know, in your environment, you know, which is great. So the final question that we usually ask is, why is it important to go out and vote?
Well, it's very important to get your voice heard. I mean, you can't complain about, you know, what's going on in Washington if you're not getting involved. You know, whether you want to vote early, because I know now some states are doing that now, or whether you vote on election day, either or, that's your way of getting your voice heard. It's your way to put a check on the government's power. You say, no, government, I don't want this to happen. I want you to do this. Follow the Constitution. Don't deviate from it. And that's the people's check on the government. And that's why we have, you know, our House of Representatives. And the Senate used to originally be chosen by the states, but then that was changed. I think that should go back, but that's a separate issue. But it's very important to go out and vote. I mean, it's very easy to fill out the form. You know, I voted for the first time in 2016. It took me 5 seconds to fill out the form, mail it in, and then I got the absentee ballot down in school and voted for my individual, and that was that. I was very proud to vote in that election, and you know, it's a little thing, but it goes a long way.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely,
absolutely.
So over the next, you know, have less than a year now. Anything that you really kind of hope to achieve before, you know, November 4th of 2024?
Absolutely. Just reaching out to different groups in the community, whether it's Lions clubs, Chamber of Commerce events, local Republican clubs, or even independent or Democrat clubs, whatever. And just reaching out and hearing what people have to say, and just being a listener. You know, my football coach in high school, he said, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you do twice as much listening as you do talking. Yeah. And that always stuck with me. And, you know, that's the job. I think a lot of people need to learn and understand this. And I think my job would be for those who don't know, to teach them about the Constitution, what the Founding Fathers thought about, how they wrote it, the history behind each clause. But then ultimately after that, I sit back and I let the people tell me what's going on in their lives and how can we work to help them out, protecting them, whether it's enforcing the law or getting out of their way, letting them to let their business flourish. So that's what I hope to achieve.
Awesome. All right. Great, Peter. Well, listen, it's been really great having you. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching Access Spotlight. I'm Travis Youssef.